Toxic load is a data point. So we can compare apples to apples if we want to. But unfortunately, very few brands are still testing their final batch, like the consumer batch product is rarely being tested by a third party or even by the brands themselves. Preferably in the future, every single brand in risk or every single category of food in general, food supplement in risk of contamination should be tested on the highest risk heavy metals, for example. So you could compare that.
Hello, I'm Dr. Wendy Myers. Welcome to the Myers Detox Podcast. And on this show, we talk about everything related to heavy metals and chemicals and detoxification, the health issues caused by these toxins, and a lot of other advanced topics in biohacking. But I also love to touch on anti-aging and bioenergetics. On today's show, we have Oliver Chamby. So he's going to be talking about the toxins in protein powder and also which ones to choose, which one is best. I know millions of you are taking protein powders, but buyer beware. There are some distinctions that need to be made when it comes to choosing your protein powder. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about all the different heavy metals that are in different types of protein powders, how whey protein is really superior to plant proteins in a lot of different ways, including bioavailability and amino acid profile, and it's generally cleaner as far as toxins are concerned than plant-based proteins. We'll talk about how the chocolate protein flavoring like cacao can contain cadmium and lead, and how soy can be very high in pesticides and is almost always genetically modified, so you want to avoid soy protein isolate protein powders. We'll talk about how hemp protein is particularly prone to high cadmium levels, and why organic certification doesn't guarantee low heavy metal content. We'll also talk about fish oil and how fish oil quality depends on the source, processing speed to prevent oxidation and rancidity. And we'll talk about how fish oil made from small fish like anchovies and sardines have a lot lower mercury and environmental toxin levels, and how fish oil oxidation is a major issue. It causes inflammation and damages your health. So a lot of people are taking fish oil as well. And we'll also talk about how capsules are more stable than liquid fish oil after opening, because the liquid goes rancid after about 1 week. And we'll talk about high EPA and DHA concentration is really important for potency. And we'll also talk about how Oliver's brand Puori emphasizes purity and transparency, testing every batch of their supplements for heavy metals, contaminants, and oxidation. And so really good show today. You've got to tune in because we've got to be making a lot of distinctions when it comes to choosing and purchasing and consuming various supplements. So our guest today, Oliver Andrup Chamby, he is the co-founder and CEO of Danish-based health and food supplement brand Puori. With more than 15 years of experience, Puori is a front runner in third-party batch testing, based on testing all products in final consumer batches for the most environmental toxins. The last few years, Puori has pledged to be part of the Transparency Promise driven by the Clean Label Project, a project that gives consumers third-party full transparency on what's actually in their products. And it's a long-term goal of Puori to be a part of making environmental testing a regulated process for foods and food supplements considered in the risk group of toxification. Oliver holds a Bachelor in International Business Communication from SDU in Denmark and an executive program from Stanford. And while studying, he started a personal training business, which grew into the first CrossFit gym in Denmark. And then in 2007, he launched a corporate fitness app, which was acquired 9 months later. And he went on to work as a regional director of CrossFit from 2011 to 2015, alongside building Puori, and before moving to San Francisco to solely focus on the growth of Puori. And in 2009, he founded Puori together with Julius Heslett with the goal of creating the cleanest third-party tested fish oil and protein powder on the market. And Oliver, he's a true health nerd, passionate about stoicism, and is known for having spent the last 20 years testing different health training on longevity routines. You can learn more about him and his amazing line of supplements at puori.com, Puori.com. Oliver, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the health industry?
Yeah, so I think the short story, I got really passionate about physical activity and training when I was studying business right after high school, and I started and fell in love as a personal trainer with the idea of helping others and myself and kind of improving your health and wellness through things you could do yourself. So I got into that space. Then I started a gym, a CrossFit gym. It was actually the second CrossFit gym in Europe. At the time, it was very early days, called CrossFit Denmark, before there was CrossFit gyms all over the place. But then my passion was like always along the line of food and what I could do more of. So that kind of made a turn into being first an interest in some of the key micronutrients lacking in our diet. So we were looking a lot on like optimizing diet based on, both based on blood work and data, but also just general macro movements of how we're consuming food in general. So I was pretty interested, my co-founder and I, when we were kind of diving into the omega-3, omega-6 fatty acid balances and understanding, the Western diet versus like maybe a more optimal diet from the past on richer in omega-3 fatty acids. And when we're going into that, like how can you actually supplement this to make it easier than just getting it from food? Because it might be hard to get enough from food. When we went down that path, it took us to, just remember like a lot of different scientists and doctors guiding us, like if you're starting to consume something on a daily basis, just make sure it's pure and clean, because we know fish can be polluted. There can be heavy metals, there can be toxins in the oceans that might accumulate in the fish, and you will get it from the fish oil. So we were like these two happy young people that were like, okay, that makes sense. So I'm going to find out exactly how many parts per billion of lead or mercury is in the fish oil that I can buy. And we walked to the stores, and first we couldn't get really any answers. It was like, this is interesting. Everybody agrees here on something on the food side, which was kind of interesting for us, because in the training and wellness space, everybody disagrees somehow. There's like various routes to let's say a healthier body and so on. But when it looked at the toxin load, everybody agreed that a little lead is not good and a lot of lead in your body is really bad. So there was nobody saying you need a little more lead in your diet. So we were kind of interested and got a little bit like asked a lot of questions, because it didn't make any sense when people were so focused on this. Why was there no data points on it? So at the time we were based, you can probably hear it on the accent, based out of Copenhagen, Denmark. And we couldn't find any brand through either pharmacies, health food stores, or anything that would actually give us the actual test report on that fish oil that we were trying to buy. So we felt there must be an opportunity of a brand that will share that on their homepage, like kind of first thing, hey, look, we tested this from this. And this is back in, when we started looking into this, it's back in 2007, 2008. So it's quite some time ago.
Yeah, that's great. And that's, right before I started my website, also focused on toxins. And it's really amazing how little information at that time, and still a lot of companies not really testing their products, not testing for heavy metals and chemicals. And it's a little shocking. That's why I love that your brand, Puori, is so focused on testing all of your products for heavy metals and clearly posting that on your website. And more importantly, so we're going to talk about protein powders. And I think people don't realize how many heavy metals are in protein powders. I mean, yeah, they can get organic. They can buy organic ones and not worry about the chemicals, but there's more to it than that. So can you talk about some of the problems with various types of protein powders today? Because most people are taking those on a daily basis.
For sure. And I think that's what makes a lot of sense to touch more on that, because you're also consuming a larger amount. That's why like a powder, you might consume 20, 30, 40 grams a day, where I would say some other food supplements might be less of a risk because you're consuming smaller amounts. They can be very concentrated for sure, but like when we talk protein powders, you're potentially consuming 30 grams of protein powder on a daily basis. So what we've seen, and like Puori is pure origin. So what we've seen in our journey was like, we have to start by sourcing the purest ingredients we can. And then there's some ingredients when you mix them in, whether it's like a protein powder, you want a flavor component, it can actually be the flavor component that is more, toxic, or at least like if we look at protein powders, vanilla versus chocolate. It's if you have the same whey protein as a general foundation, whey is one of the cleaner proteins we've seen compared to plants, especially on the heavy metal side. But if we take a cleaner protein like a whey, and then again we can dive into the quality of how clean and where was the cow grazing, what were they eating and so on, and go deeper down that hole in a second. But if we just take those two, if you then add the cacao, and cacao is a great natural ingredient, and it's a healthy ingredient full of flavonoids and other good antioxidants. But if you add a cacao bean that potentially is polluted, we have seen a very big difference when we are sourcing organic, high quality. We're trying to source the most, highest quality on the market when we're looking for it. We've been through probably 10, 12 different cacao manufacturers. And what we see is in these cacao beans is there is potentially a pretty high amount of, especially cadmium, and could also be lead and so on, is what we're most commonly seeing. So again, the flavor can have a component to it. The source of a region can have a component to it. But yeah, that's what we've been trying to do now over the last it's 15 years, finding those purest raw ingredients possible, and they can come from all over. We source from mainly we source from Europe and US, but we also source a little bit from Canada and New Zealand now and then, depending on again product quality. And that is what I think a takeaway is here as well. That is come back. It's a data point. So it's like toxic load is a data point. So we can compare apples to apples if we want to. But unfortunately, very few brands are still testing their final batch, like the consumer batch product is rarely being tested by a third party or even by the brands themselves. It's a good start. But potentially and preferably in the future, every single brand in risk, or every single category of food in general, food supplement in risk of contamination, should be tested on the highest risk heavy metals, for example. So you could compare that. It's hard for the supply chain to set it up, but it's not that expensive. And think of the impact over time consuming a protein powder that had maybe 2 or 3 times the daily safe, if there is any safe limit, because that's probably not, but the daily recommended maximum level or threshold set by whether it's Proposition 65 or European regulations a day in a protein shake. It's so counterintuitive to when you're trying to do something good for yourself.
So for anyone listening that really wants to detox their body, go to heavymetalsquiz.com. I created a quiz for you. It only takes a couple of seconds. Based on some lifestyle questions, you can get your toxicity score and get a free video series that answers all of your frequently asked questions about how to detox your body. Check it out, heavymetalsquiz.com.
Yes. Yeah. And so what you mentioned was cacao. So if you have a choice between cacao and vanilla protein powder, if the company you're buying it from doesn't have any testing, you should probably choose a vanilla. So, but there are companies like your company that's doing testing and really being rigorous about the sourcing of their ingredients, which is so important because there's so many reports all over consumers reports about the lead in chocolate, and there's so many problems in that industry, even in organic. Because remember, organic means chemical free, nothing to do with heavy metals. So there's no regulatory agency, there's no label, there's no label on a package that you can find to deduce whether this is, has low levels of heavy metals or high levels. So there's no regulatory agency working on that, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, no. And this is something that we worked very closely with the Clean Label Project, which is a nonprofit out of the US, because Clean Label Project have done in the past some quite big category studies where they go out and buy up to 80% of what American consumers can get their hands on of it could be pet food, it could be protein powder, baby food, any kind of category that they wanted to put focus on. And when they bought protein powders, they had a big study back in 2018. When they bought that, they saw a host of different things that they were, wanted to improve, and a lot of products that had high levels of heavy metals and whatnot. But actually in that test, we reached out to them afterwards and said, this is great, but it's a snapshot. It's still a snapshot of the category. And we would love, and this was actually interesting talking with Jackie, the executive director of the Clean Label Project, because we said, we would love if you would upload and test every single batch of all our products, because at the moment we were doing lab testing ourselves. We had in the fish oil industry, there was the IFAS program, which is, somewhat similar to Clean Label Project. It's a testing facility, but again, it's not mandatory to test every single batch, which is, I think, is a big difference in testing. A lot of it is sporadically testing 5-10% of what a brand is doing over a year. But what we have seen in the supply chain, and this is not this is not whether it's farmers or manufacturers or anything being purposely misleading. But what we have seen in the supply chain is even from the same rate origin, we see a big variation. It could be 10-time variation on heavy metals. So we know if we don't test that final product, like on every single batch of every single product, it is just it's a little bit of safety for sure, and it's better than not. But I think we should be able to move in that direction. And we call it our Clean Label project, call it the transparency pledge or the transparency promise. So we've done that now with our brand. So there's a QR code on every single batch of protein powder or fish oil or whatever product that you have from us. And you would scan that QR code and you would be able to find a lab report on that exact batch. And it's quite a lot of lab reports running around also, because there might be underneath the lab report, we might be testing for heavy metals, but we might also be testing for residual solvents, or it could be microbial, it could be the protein content, it could be various different things that are in risk of that product. So that changes a little bit from product to product now, right? But if you have that data, at least you can go and look and see for yourself, like in this batch, I feel pretty comfortable doing it. If you take us as an example, we also have a cacao protein powder on the market, and we have set a standard internal, which is probably slightly lower than Proposition 65, which is, I would say, the strictest real regulated standard in US for.
But that goes a little bit overboard. I think it goes way too overboard, in my opinion. I know it's to protect consumers, but it goes a little bit overboard. It's overreaching a little bit.
You think so? Yeah, you don't think it's the way to go in the future, that having those data points, or?
Well, no, I think that it unfairly hurts the supplement industry, whereby a lot of food-based supplements just naturally do contain lead. And a lot of food products we buy, potatoes, root vegetables, contain a lot of lead, but those aren't tested, but the supplements are. The Prop 65, I think, is a little bit too strict, in my opinion, and singles out the supplement industry, I think, to a certain degree on purpose, to make them look bad, make it another hoop to jump through. I think kind of unfairly favors that out. Though I'm all for protecting consumers and going with companies like yourself that are very meticulous and that are doing testing on their own and that are setting a high standard for toxin levels in their products.
Yeah, and I think going down that I think there should be some food products that are tested as well. So I think we should expand the testing, probably more so that we look into at least those high risk groups and find a way. Because again, this is some of the things that is good with human nature, is we're inventive. We will, if there's an issue and a problem, we can try to solve it, right? So I think there should be ways to solve that as well for these food groups, so that we're not just trying to get super high quality protein powders. But then again, and I use this example at home as well. But the dark chocolate that I love at home, I have no idea what's actually in that bean, like in the one I'm consuming. The only thing I can do right now as a consumer is change brand now and then and go from different areas, so I don't maybe get too much of one, even though we know that a brand can have various fields that they're sourcing the cacao beans from. So it doesn't need to be. But again, that's the best. And I think the level of technical finesse that we've created around the world, we should be able to find a system at least for that. And I hope also we should find a way to know our Earth crust and kind of areas a little bit better, if we could map that out. So internally, we've mapped that out. So we've seen, okay, this area, generally, we see better quality raw ingredients from when it comes from here versus this area. But think of being able to map our planet, so we use the planet the best way possible, or at least just our countries, right, the best way possible.
Yeah, because we do heavy metals testing here at Myers Detox, and we see people from different countries have different heavy metal toxicities that are more prevalent because there's more different toxins in the soil. And same thing with coffee, or the cacao can have more cadmium in it based on the region or the soil in which it's grown, for sure. And also that brings me to thinking about other types of protein powders, is say hemp. So that's a really popular, plant-based alternative, but that can have really high levels of cadmium. The hemp plant is very adept, and tobacco as well, as drawing out that cadmium from the soil. So hemp protein powders, I used to take that, 15 years ago, but I would never take that today. I would only do whey protein powder based on what I know as far as nutrition and as far as toxins and various types of protein powders.
Yeah, and I would agree. Like that's the one I would consume on a daily basis. But I think we've played a little bit, and with pea proteins, we found some pretty high quality, fairly clean proteins out there. So that's what we've done. Again, we have a community of people who are maybe like vegan focused, and still having a high time hitting their daily protein targets for various reasons. So we played around with that, and for that we actually didn't create any flavoring or anything. So it's just kind of it's super straightforward product, but very simple. But again, it's all about that raw ingredients. How pure can we get it? It doesn't taste as good, I would say, and that's my personal opinion. Taste is different, but like personal opinion on like versus a whey protein that can be, I think, easier use on a daily basis. But
so this episode is brought to you by Chef's Foundry. They've got a fantastic line of cookware called P600. It's totally non-toxic. I think people don't realize that when they're cooking, most people's cookware is adding toxins to their healthy food, that people spend so much money on healthy organic food and then cook it in toxic cookware. And so that includes cast iron, which I do not recommend. It adds way too much iron in a form that we can't absorb. People use aluminum cookware, which is very inexpensive, and it's used at most restaurants, giving us tons of aluminum. People are also using ceramic cookware, which can leach toxins into your food. And not to mention the nonstick cookware. It just has so many PFAS or PFAS that is so toxic. It's one of the forever chemicals. So you really have to pay attention to what you're cooking in. So that's why I recommend the P600 line by Chef's Foundry, so that you can have peace of mind when you're cooking and you're not getting any nasty chemicals like lead or cadmium or nickel or PFAS in your healthy food. You can get a special discount for my listeners by going to bit.ly/Myers Detox. So that's bit.ly/Myers Detox, MYERS DETOX, to get an exclusive discount just for my listeners. I want you to be thinking about what you're cooking your food in, and I highly recommend the P600 line by Chef's Foundry. Yeah, and let's talk about the differences in whey protein powder. So there's regular old whey protein powder from regular cows in the U.S., that can be fed GMO corn and soy. And there's whey protein isolate, which you want to avoid like the plague. And then there's the grass-fed, and then there's grass-fed organic. So there's a whole, there's a whole spectrum of quality within that one type of protein powder. Can you talk about that?
yes, and I think if I didn't have like the transparency testing in our end, where I could actually see there's no pesticide residue, there's no antibiotics and so on in there, I would go for an organic, grass-fed pasture-raised whey. Like if I didn't have any other information, that's where I'd go. But what we've seen actually now, and we can have areas that might not be, big enough to be organic certified, but they've always grass. They have cows that are living like outside and year round or most of the year, depending on where you are on the planet. But we could actually buy that and feel equally good about it if like animal safety and so on was like at high quality. I think that's what I like about organic as well, is at least you get that check mark as well. But if we do that research ourselves with the different farmers that we work with. But if you do that, we could actually use something that's not organic, as long as the cow is going outside, and we test in that final product for, pesticide residue, GMOs. Again, GMO is not something we see in Europe, but non-GMO, obviously. Antibiotics, some of the other things, and heavy metals for sure. And again, heavy metals, organic doesn't need to be better. Often we've actually seen slightly more, and I think that's more of a hit and miss thing, but that's at least what the studies have shown when we looked into the data point.
Yeah, I mean, as long as a company, because there's plenty of products I buy that are not USD organic, but as long as the cow is not given hormones and not given pesticide laden food, it's technically organic. So
It's
it
for
so
sure
that's
is, yeah.
there's plenty of like I have a ranch that I go to. They're not certified organic, but I see their processes. I talk to the the people that work there, and there's no hormones or pesticide anywhere near that ranch. So I know that my
Exactly.
meat and my raw milk and my raw butter are totally safe and healthy.
And that is also another thing, right? Like, think of how we've labeled that reverse. Now, conventional is using chemistry, and organic, where we're back to how the cow was living in in the past, right, is now the special. Like, that's the one that needs to certify. It should be so opposite, right? Like, it should be like chemically processed or whatever we would give it a name, and then conventional should be the organic, right? But that's not the way it is, and unfortunately, again, depending a little bit on markets and countries, it's only, I think, 15 to 20% in Denmark of all the different products that are manufactured that are organic certified. So yeah, to your point, if you know the local farmer that has done good job with their producing products for a long time, they do not need to necessarily be certified organic. But again, when you're buying a protein powder where it's rarely coming from a super small little area, it's harder to kind of figure out where that raw ingredient actually come from. That's where that final testing in the product can give you a lot of security in what you're consuming on a daily basis.
Yeah, and so also let's talk about whey. So why is whey superior for protein versus other types of protein powders?
I think one of them is, like, if you say the bioavailability of how easy you actually absorb a gram of protein. And this, there's a lot of people out there. There's way more specified, like a Dr. Gabriel Lyon is like very good at ranking protein sources and how effectively they are absorbed and so on. But I think in general, what we see is whey is really on top of the food chain. So if you get 20 grams of protein from whey, you get a really high amount of bioactive protein into your body. Whereas a plant could be, let's say, 50% of the same, per gram. That's a big difference in the quality of the combination of amino acids that there's underlying the product and so on. So I think that's why whey is a very convenient and superior product in terms of like the protein you actually get. Because when you're consuming protein powders, the key reason is to get like the essential amino acid profile and protein. That's why you're doing it. It's rarely for there can be a taste or that type of experience, but most people do it for increasing their protein intake. So I would say that that's at least one component over the plants. Many people take it post workout. I think it's more important how much protein you're getting in a day than necessarily like a window after workout to have a certain amount. But again, it is easily absorbed, and that's why a lot of people also prefer that to other sources.
Yeah, and it tastes a lot better too. Like the whey protein is like so creamy and nice. And I'm lactose intolerant, but whey doesn't bother me, so it doesn't have any lactose in it, or it doesn't have any of the milk sugars. So you're fine, even if you are dairy intolerant, so to speak. There's different components of the dairy. You can be sensitive to the casein, you can be sensitive to the milk sugars, the lactose. But whey, it's very, very rare people have a problem with whey.
It is, and we've had a lot of people also saying exactly what you're saying, like, oh, I've like I couldn't consume this product, or I was lactose, so I don't do, but I actually don't feel anything when I'm consuming this. So I think you should try and listen to your body as well, how you feel. That's an important part of it as well.
Okay, so your Puori whey protein powder, so you have vanilla and you have chocolate. Do you have any other flavors, or are those the two main ones?
Those are the two main ones. Then we have the plant-based that is non-flavored, so there's no flavor component to it. But those are the two ones. We're playing with different flavors and we want to do more. I think protein is also something where people, like, if you are shaking it up every day, at some point it's nice to have a little bit of a flavor change. The good thing about vanilla, I think, is you can blend it into so many different things. You can mix it into whether it's like an oats or it's the shakes. It's all the different ways you can use it if you use more of a heavy berry. Sometimes if I'm really into a cacao, like chocolate flavor, I would add some raw cacao powder into it, and you can do that too. But again, like strawberries, all the different berries. You can even do it with green stuff, which I think most people don't do, but I like in the mornings, like a heavy green, like lots of like high quality frozen vegetables. Even maybe a little bit of coconut water if you also want that to a little bit of sweetness. And you can actually mix that in too and have something that tastes really good. And I can say we can get kids to drink it too. Because another thing is, one thing is having adults that are, wanting different things, but like personally having people and kids able to taste stuff like that, it tastes good. It's a good way to get more vegetables in them at the same time.
Yes, yeah. My daughter will drink a smoothie all day long, but she won't always touch certain vegetables. But your vegetarian your vegan protein powder, is that pea protein
It's
that's in
pea.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pea. We've been playing with a lot of different peas. And we found one that we feel now the sauce we've had has been, I say, the supply chain side of our team will say, oh, we have such a hard time with this product, but we think it's consistent clean. At least what the consumer is getting is consistently clean. But we've seen even in manufacturing, us buying like tons of peas from the same area. Then we package up first batch, send that to testing, and then the second half of the batch we don't see the exact same numbers. So there is variation when you're talking raw ingredients, and again, that's to the point of doing a lot of these testing. And if you go to the Clean Labels website and look up the Puori's protein powder, you would probably find 20 or 30 lab reports that are, products that potentially is in the market right now. And that's on every single batch. There's one. So, and we might not make the biggest batches. We are not the biggest company. We make small batches. We're very quality niched, focused on that. But so you'll see a lot of batches in there. But the pea protein is the same. But if you ask in our supply, they will say we've had so many more times where we've like this, this raw ingredient was not clean enough to live up to our standards. This one was not like, and they've been scrambling a lot. So that, and then the cacao beans, that has been, I think, two of the big hustles in the protein side.
Yeah, I love how meticulous you are with sourcing the ingredients, because it is challenging. It is challenging to find, to clean ingredients. I saw, I manufacture supplements myself, and it's very challenging. So let's talk about omega-3 fish oil, because this is a product that a lot of people take. Most people that take supplements are having some sort of omega-3 supplement, and they have a lot of problems with contamination and with mercury. So can you talk a little bit about that, about
Yes.
the prevalence of mercury in some fish oils?
And I'll give you a little bit of background probably on the fish as well. So, like obviously, the smaller the fish, and not obviously, but the smaller the fish in the food chain, we tend to see less environmental toxins in general. They build up over time. So larger fish, tuna and so on. We know that if you're like, you shouldn't eat it every day, there's like a risk of heavy metals in the fish. The smaller the fish, the cleaner the status in general. So I think when you go to anchovies, sardines, mackerel, those are small fish. We go to salmon and so on, you got to be aware of other things, but fatty fish in general that are small, they're great. When you look at that, I generally see if we're fishing only in the South Pacific Ocean at the moment. That's where we work. We have a fishery partner there that's Friend of the Sea certified, so they don't overfish or bycatches, and they're very environmentally protective of the area. They're fast reproductive, the small fish, so you have a fairly stable school of fish basically in the same area, and they're small, so they don't seem to. We haven't seen a lot of pollution issues on that. I think the biggest thing we've seen in fish oil. Again, there's others sourcing different fish from around the world. I'm sure there's different, mercury levels in those products. Generally, again, I would say the larger the fish, the more aware I would be of that. But the other thing we see on the fish oil side is actually oxidation, that I think is really destructive for a quality fish oil. And what we've seen now, doing tons of different testing on our own products, but also all the data we can find online and so on, keeping that low oxidation, like Totox, which is the measurement of like the oxygen in the oil, keeping that low at consumer level is so critical. like for a first product, a high quality product. We know that omega-3s are fairly unstable. They can go rancid pretty quickly. So you want to be very meticulous in the production, like starting from the small fish, the first press of the fish. How quickly can you actually do the molecular distillation of the fish oil? You're concentrating the EPA, DHA, and then how good are you to getting it into capsules? So there's actually a lot of, like, if it's capsule or liquid, generally again say capsules are more stable at home when you have them because it's encapsulated, so they're protected by the capsule. Liquid can be fresher sometimes when you open it, but it goes rancid so much quicker because they will get oxygen into the fish oil immediately after opening. So if you're not consuming it within 5 to 7 to 10 days, even though it says 20 days or 30 days on the label, I would normally not prefer the liquid, just on the different heat trials and non-heat trials that we've seen on how fast does the oxidation actually goes. It goes almost exponentially up over time. So that liquid is something to be aware of. But other than that, yeah, I don't know if I didn't answer your mercury question specifically, saying like small fish is a good starting point. And then IFOS or Clean Label Project or some of the other testing facilities out there, we can go in again and see what's actually in this batch of fish oil that I consume. I think IFOS is doing a good job because they add the oxidation level testing to it, which I think is critical.
Important. That's so important because that's one of the bigger issues with fish oil is the rancidity factor. I mean, you just can open the bottle and smell it yourself. And I used to just gobble up fish oil like, nobody's business. But I, on occasion smell the bottle and, oh my God, it just smells horrifying. And I'd go to put it in my mouth and my body would be like, please, no, please don't take that. But I'm taking it because I think it's good for me. And you want to take it for your brain, etc. Pregnant women, I was pregnant. I was taking, the omega-3 fatty acids a lot. But I think people just don't factor that in, especially say they're shopping on a budget. Say they're buying that huge bottle at Costco or Sam's Club, and it's very, very inexpensive. Omega-3 fatty acids is not something you want to buy based on price. You really want to shop on quality because that fish oil is usually, because it's the cheap manufacturing process, is more than likely going to be oxidized and cause you more harm and more inflammation and more oxidative stress in your body than it is health promoting. So we don't want to be doing something for our health and then have the opposite result.
Which is crazy again. And I think really on that side, it's more common that they're rancid than they're not rancid. Like even capsuled products, that's what we've been seeing at least. And if you even just go through the IFOS testing site, International Fish Oil Standard testing site, where you can find a lot of brands in there that do a good job. Even on IFOS, it's not every single batch of every single product. So like knowing, like you would probably send your prettiest baby or your prettiest product to your test. If you're testing 1 out of 10, you would probably do that. But even if you scroll through there's a lot of products, in my opinion, has fairly high oxidation levels in their oil. And I think these are the good ones. So we call it a sushi of fish oil. So when you're taking a capsule, like we always encourage people to chew in it. Smelling is a great part, but a lot of brands are using different essential oils or different components to mask smell and odor. So we say take a capsule, chew in the capsule, swallow the fish oil, have a little food or something nearby because it is an oil like having a big scoop of olive oil can also feel like a burn in your throat. So have something food, but taste it. If it tastes like fish and it disappears right away, it's probably fresh. There's a good chance it's fresh. If that fishiness kind of continue hanging in your mouth, it's probably a rancid, right? There's a good chance that it's rancid. And you would never eat sushi at a restaurant where you would have that feeling. You would never do that. So like chew one capsule, take the product you have at home, do the test yourself. It is a simple test. It's not like a 100% accurate test, but it gives you really good input on if it's actually a fresh product or not. And then I think the final component in that is as well to be aware of. You can even have great products and great brands, but if transportation, and we see that a lot in, Texas during the hot month, even though we're like trying to give as much information to our couriers as possible. But if a package is left outside a door in 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the sunshine, that fish oil is very quickly going to be melted. The pills might be melted together. It might be super rancid and so on. If you ever experience that from us, just let us know. We'll send a new one, but that can happen as well. So how long has this product been on the road to get to you, or where had it been stored? That's also an important part.
So this episode is brought to you today by Puori Woods Skincare. So if you care about your health and longevity, which, let's face it, if you're listening to this show right now, you probably do, then I assume you know to watch what you eat, get plenty of exercise, and prioritize your sleep. But where I notice so many of my health conscious peers can drop the ball, so to speak, is when it comes to their personal care products. So truly, folks, we all need to be reading the ingredients list on any product that we're putting on our skin. It absorbs directly into your bloodstream. But how often do you buy skincare products because they're labeled as clean or organic, or they have organic in the name of the product, or they say paraben-free, only to find out that there's a ton of toxic ingredients in them that are damaging to your skin, your body, and your hormones? Why is it so hard to find skincare products that are truly 100% USDA organic certified? So that's why I use and recommend Puori Woods Skincare. So Puori Woods' mission is to provide people with the cleanest and most effective healthy aging and longevity products available. And all of their products are USDA certified organic, non-GMO, free of anything artificial, free of toxic preservatives and synthetic additives like pesticides, chemical fertilizers, dyes, parabens, and of course, it's cruelty-free and never tested on animals. Puori Woods' best-selling product, the age-defying Dream Cream, has been flying off the shelves for a reason. So this formulation includes red maple leaf extract, along with collagen-boosting ingredients like organic mango seed butter and organic Indian gooseberry, which, if you don't know, it's the most antioxidant-rich fruit on earth. And as you know, I'm also a big research geek, and in recent years, there's been some genuinely fascinating science coming out of the University of Rhode Island about red maple leaf extract for the skin. So this little-known skincare ingredient has been shown to block the breakdown of elastin, the key protein in your skin that allows it to stretch and remain firm. So some researchers are even calling this ingredient a potential plant-based Botox, so to speak. So if you're ready to detox your skin routine of all those hormone-disrupting synthetic chemicals that plague 99% of the skincare industry, but you don't want to compromise on results, I highly recommend that you try out Puori Woods' age-defying Dream Cream. And if you don't agree that it's the best skincare you've ever used, your purchase is protected by their really generous 60-day happiness guarantee. But honestly, I've never seen a skincare product of this quality at this reasonable of a price point. And thankfully, the good people at Puori Woods have a special discount code specifically for my listeners. So you can try it yourself for 27% off today. Just go to puoriwoods.com/Wendy or enter Wendy at checkout. So that's PURITYWOODS.com/Wendy or enter Wendy at checkout. Yes. Yeah. And so we're talking about, you can have rancidity and oxidation from the manufacturing process, from it being too old, sitting around on the shelf, and based on heat, because heat will oxidize and break down oils and cause them to go rancid. I think it's also really important to have them in dark bottles. If oil is exposed to light, it's in a clear bottle.
Same.
Bad news. You don't want that either. And so can you talk to us about some of the processes, the rigorous process that you go through to ensure that you have the highest quality omega-3 fish oil?
So it obviously starts with the fish. So like we're saying, what we've seen is the South Pacific has been the best areas for us to fish anchovies, especially. That's what we're using the most. Then like that first press, how quickly can that go from, to be like fresh caught fish to a press of crude fish oil? And then from there on, how quickly can we molecular distill it? We actually do that right offshore of the fishery. So the partner we have to work with, they do this in a very short period of time. So we've seen, the more we've been doing this for plus 15 years, so the more knowledge we've gotten into all the different phases, the capsulation phase and so on, the better have been able to to reach, like, we're looking at a goal which is around 5 is the oxidation Totox number that we're going after. That's what we've been aiming for in the finished product tested by an independent third party like IFOS. So it's not the crude oil that we're seeing. We can be almost 0 in that. But as we get into that final consumer facing product, which is what matters basically, that's the key. The second part is, like, now we talked a lot about, purity. So we tested from all the purity perspective. We talked about the oxidation, but the final component of eating and consuming omega-3s is getting actual omega-3s. So it's pretty easy to have a clean product with a low amount of EPA DHA. That's just less of the actual fish, that's of the actual product. So, like, having a high concentration so that you get more basically bang for your buck, like this percentage game, so to speak. And if you take 100% fish oil in what we would say out of our products, it would be minimum 80% concentration. That is EPA, DHA, or other omega-3 fatty acids, which is the only reason why you're really consuming that pill. There's no instant gratification. There's no, like, benefit of saturation or anything. It's like, it is to get those like omega-3 fatty acid long form. So I think that's kind of the key. High concentration, fresh Totox oxidation markers, and good purity markers across everything from the heavy metals, but also dioxins, furans, and other things that are found in fish. So, and again, IFOS is a good way of looking it up. I just be aware again that most brands don't do every single batch of every single product, which I again think is critical because there's so big variation in what you actually end up with as a consumer.
Yeah, and so tell us about some of the other products that you have. So what is the name first of the fish oil? And is there a product name?
We call it omega-3. So
okay,
O3,
great, simple enough.
It's very simple. So it's basically an O3. That was our first product, and I think that's again where the Puori, pure origin kind of story really started, and the data that we can have behind and so on. We also do a magnesium product, which is different forms of organic magnesium with zinc. It's like a fairly simple, but it gets you a high dose of like organic good forms of magnesium that's easily absorbable for the bodies. We have a protein. We have a collagen product as well. We're single, like bovine collagen, same kind of concept as the protein, clean. The concentration of collagen is there, and then obviously all the different purity markers that we want. So that's another product that we also see. And then we have a probiotic prebiotic product. We see less issues with environmental toxins in those type of products because they're more like lab made, almost like they're bacteria strains that you ferment and so on. So it's a different process. So I think it's the one where you have the largest amount of natural ingredient. Those are the ones I would be most into figuring out getting from a really pure source. But again, the transparency pledge goes across our entire portfolio, from vitamin D, magnesium, omega-3, kind of the key. We call them the health essentials. We also have a multivitamin. But then it's a fairly narrow portfolio of the few protein SKUs, the collagen, and so on. So products that we're not the ones coming out with the newest hot biohacking ingredients or any kind of newest thing that is tip of the spear in terms of research and so on. We practice virtuosity for the ingredients that we've seen heavy amounts of evidence-based data on. Like, there's so many studies pointing in direction of, again, consuming an omega-3 has an impact. And then we're trying to do that as pure and like simple we can, basically, because it's something I use myself as an example. I have been taking this omega-3 for 15 plus years. I've been gone on a larger doses, like larger than I would recommend based on blood work data and working with, functional naturopathic doctors and doctors in general that we've been playing with different things. So using a self-given picks, that's not my background. I don't recommend others to do that, but I think it's interesting to go down the blood route and seeing, do I actually absorb these different things that I'm consuming? Do I need to do any adjustments? Will there be any health adjustments down the line of, doing less or doing more of something? So I think that's like something we're deeply passionate about here as well, and something what we've been playing a lot with. And we believe also in a future where, the actual, let's say I needed 3 capsules a day, but you needed 4 capsules a day, or I needed 6 capsules and one needed one. Like, I think that would be really nice to know at the end of the day if the variation of what is actually our like individual optimal level. What we've seen so far is like giving 2 grams of omega-3 fatty acids as a supplement to the diet based on what diets we're having is a really good add-on. There's a lot of studies in that. That's kind of a good place to start. And that's what you get out of 3 capsules in the serving size of our omega-3. So that's how we've tried to do it with every single product. It's not like I might do a larger dose for periods. I had concussion. I was speaking with a lot of different concussion experts and specialists, and we were playing with some high doses of various different things. I eventually got over the concussion. I don't know. I can't say if that's the case. I did a lot of different things, but that's how it is when you have an injury or anything. You're doing a lot of different things. It's very, very hard to single out one thing. But yeah, I think in general, like if you can get more personal blood work as well, I think that can be beneficial for your individual supplementation needs as well.
Yeah, and I love what you said that you want to be the virtuoso or have virtuosity in the basic supplements that the majority of people need. I mean, most people they need to increase their protein. They're not getting enough omega-3. No one's eating fish every day. Very, very rarely.
Have a low amount of magnesium, vitamin D is low, right? Yeah,
yes.
Those are
everybody
the basics,
needs so much more magnesium. Even the people taking magnesium usually need more than what they're taking. So I love that you've committed your company Puori has committed itself to having the best quality ingredients, testing rigorously of everything. And that's why I take it. I take your whey protein powder. I love it. It tastes absolutely delicious. And I have peace of mind knowing, and talking to you before this podcast about the rigorous testing that you go through all of your products. I take the omega-3 product as well, and they're just fantastic. And so I highly, highly recommend them because I think there's a lot of companies out there, like you go to Whole Foods or you go to natural food stores here where you're looking for high quality ingredients because you're taking these things for your health. And it's really disappointing the quality level that's out there of protein powders, of omega-3, of even collagen. It's really disappointing the quality and the mass production and the companies that have like the big majority share of the shelf space or that's in every single store. You're going to lose quality in that mass production. So I think it's better to go with more of a boutique brand like yours that's doing small batch, doing rigorous testing, doing rigorous quality control. You're going to get more, what you're spending your money on. You're going to get what you're actually paying for.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate coming from you as well. So you're so into the toxic side of things and the detoxifications and everything. So we do obviously those are like I think the people that appreciate the most what we're doing. So for most people, it's more of like, safety back of mind, I feel confident and so on. But the people that actually scan the QR codes and understand the data points, like, wow, there's almost like no traces of lead in this protein powder, or no traces of that, or oxidation level is so low. We truly appreciate like that nerding part ourselves. And I think to your point, we have a little bit of a dream as well. And we do believe that even the bigger manufacturer, like the big manufacturers and so on, they can do better if they had the data and if the consumer was actually asking for that data. So we do believe that, and we do hope for more people will go the clean label route and certify their product. That's probably the step one. Eventually take the transparency pledge, which unfortunately no brands yet has done beside us, like the 100% transparency. There's a lot of people getting certified, and we really want them to go in that direction because, again, ingredients vary. But I think if we can get in that direction, like we've seen now in the baby food, with the Baby Food Safety Act, that there's actually coming like legal thresholds for how much lead there should be in baby food, which makes sense. If we can go in that direction, kind of we can show a way it's doable. I think in general, what we'll see is a much bigger attention to the quality of raw ingredients versus what have gone now is the price of raw ingredient. I think that's been the focus point. So yeah, at least that's maybe a little bit of an idealistic dream, but we hope that it will go in that direction. So at the end of the day, you'll be able to compare apples with apples. A fish oil should be fairly easy comparable to another fish oil. Grams of omega-3, oxidation, and purity.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, people listening to this show are very, adept consumers, they're have a lot of discernment in what they're putting in their body and supplements that they're taking. And I think we vote with our dollars, and that
We do.
people listening to this, and I think consumers in general, especially with RFK Jr., head of the Health and Human Services, is going to be demanding shining a light on the toxins that are in our food and in our food supply. And I think there's going to be more and more discerning consumers out there with that, and with more education and the work that you and I are doing, trying to educate people about this stuff. I think more and more people are going to be questioning what they're putting in their body and looking at the ingredients and caring more. So just really have a lot of hope with RFK Jr. Coming into office to do his work that he was, kind of destined to do.
We fingers crossed that that's the direction we believe and see the same movement. I would say even in Europe, we are starting to see more of that attention. So yeah, I totally agree. And I think when we look back at when we started, where it was almost like it's like trying to say a weird city in Russia or something like that when you're talking about environmental toxins or oxidation level in fish oil. We've at least seen that the population and audience is getting more and more educated. So we see more and more people that are researching, going deep online. And I was looking for the purest and cleanest, whey protein. Like I found this old study. This looks good, and I can actually see the measurements of lead and so on. Like that was when we got going. That was kind of us as the consumer. What we luckily starting to see is a bigger attention on that, with more people like yourself and others educating, more focus when we become, when we get into the age of having kids and so on. We normally see that's actually probably our biggest audience. We call healthy moms, because it's at that point you're also starting to become more aware of heavy metals. Like, what do I pass on to my child, or through the milk, or various different ones. So hopefully this is like a movement that is slowly, like you say, voting with the dollars and pushing the industries towards more transparency and better products at the end of the day.
So I want to introduce you to one of my favorite podcasts. It's from Dr. Jockers, and he hosts the Dr. Jockers Functional Nutrition podcast. Dr. Jockers is such a wealth of knowledge, and I just love how thorough he is with, every podcast and blog post that he produces. His Instagram has amazing infographics that make learning about health so clear and easy. And I just love his content, and I know that you are going to also. He's got over 400 podcast episodes where he shares practical tips around topics like fasting, disease prevention, brain health, and so much more. He's so thorough. Dr. Jockers has hundreds of 5-star reviews for his podcast. So if you're looking to continue to grow on your health journey, just search for Dr. Jockers on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. You won't regret it. I highly, highly recommend his show. Yes. And so where can we find your products? What is your website?
So it's puori.com, spelled Puori. So it's a contraction of pure origin. .com, and you can find anything in there, like all the different products we talked about here. You can find them there. So highly encourage that. I'm pretty sure that you will have at the time this podcast is airing, you have a setup there as well. So we can go. I think it's just going to be puori.com/Wendy. Am I correct?
Yes, fantastic. Yeah, so just go to puori.com/Wendy. And you can check out your whole line of products. And like I said, I take these myself. I absolutely love the whey protein powder. I love the omega-3 fish oil that you have as well. And I want to try your magnesium. I haven't tried that yet. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of taking magnesium. People need 5 times their body weight in pounds per day. So they need, if you're if you weigh 200 pounds, you need 1,000 milligrams per day of magnesium. And so really, really important. So definitely check out the magnesium as well. So thanks so much for coming on the show. That was really, really informative. I think people don't realize the toxins that are in their protein powder that they're taking every day. They just don't have any concept whatsoever. Most people are just taking, soy protein isolate or whey protein isolate and just have no clue that it can be causing them digestive issues or adding toxins to their health regime, unfortunately. So thanks for shining a light on that.
Thank you so much for having me and for having us and for everything you do. So hopefully more people will get less environmental toxins in their life as a consequence.
Yes. Well, everyone, thanks so much for tuning into the Myers Detox Podcast. I'm Dr. Wendy Myers and love doing this show, bringing you guys little pieces of the puzzle, little clues that help you upgrade your health, because you deserve to feel good. And that's why I do this show, because I want to help you kind of shine a light on these little areas, every little area of your life. I want you kind of reassessing it and making better choices just one step at a time. So thanks for tuning in.
The Myers Detox Podcast is created and hosted by Wendy Myers. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Wendy Myers and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.